I would like to welcome everybody to this amazing interview that we're about to have. I know that there are lots of people out there who are always looking for some good insights when it comes to taxes and keeping your money. I always like to say today, from the financial advising point of view, that it's not what you make that's so important, but what you keep that really matters. And Susan, I was so excited to meet you, and I just can't wait to give our audience access to you as our expert guest. You know, I think everybody listening has a desire to be as educated as possible when it comes to keeping your money, not overpaying in taxes. And because of this, I just know that the information from today's interview is going to be amazing. And then there's going to be follow-on ways people can stay connected with you. And so I'm really looking forward to this. So for you guys listening, if you don't know Susanne, she is a fellow author, and her new book is Profit First for Minority Business Enterprises. Susan works with, is it Susan or Suzanne? I always mess up.
Suzanne.
Suzanne, let's just get that straight right from the beginning. So Suzanne works with 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs to help them achieve record-breaking financial independence. And so what Suzanne does is right up my alley. As a financial advisor, I always have a CPA on my team. So this is just like a very natural fit. So before we jump into all the meat of the issue today, Suzanne, can you just, first of all, welcome, and then just tell us a little bit about who you are as a person?
Tara, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me here on your show. I'm really excited to do that. You know, I'm a big fan of your work and what you do. You know, I have been a CPA for over 20 years. Over 20 years, yes.
I don't look old enough.
You know, I'm telling you, Miss Clairol is amazing. I'm telling you, you know, obviously I've missed Miss Clairol a little bit the last few days, but she is amazing with keeping that fountain of youth happening. You know, I started out my career with big 4 accounting firms, Arthur Andersen in Chicago. I tell everybody Chicago, not here in Houston, wasn't involved with that stuff. And then later on went to KPMG. And when I had my daughter, I realized that my life was going to change drastically. And so as a result, I ended up starting my own firm, and it ended up being an amazing experience. Starting my firm, we had amazing small business practice. We also have some government contracts with some of the largest cities, and really just we ended up at Goldman Sachs 10,000, and, you know, the rest is history, you know, with it.
Susanne, I love that you said that. And then you talked about bringing your family into this, because I think this is such a key concept for everybody. Is it's really important that what we're talking about, it's not just for us and our businesses, but it's about our families and about creating that space so that, you know, we're not working to live. We want to live, and we work just so that we can support what we want to do with our families. And so this interview today is just so important for your family and your business. So I just love that you shared that piece of personal connection with us, you know, because Suzanne, like you, I really believe that we need to add value to people's lives with what we do, because otherwise, why are we doing it? And so that brings me to just tell us now a little bit about why you do what you do, because, you know, there's a lot of things you can be doing in life, and you're writing a book, and you've got a business, and you're taking care of your family. Why are you jumping in and writing this book for all of us?
You know, this book it's been a book in the making, right? It's been a book that the world has been waiting for, I think. And, you know, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of the reason why I'm so passionate about what I do is from my own personal experience, right? So we talked about when I started my business is because I wanted to spend time with my daughter, and she's so proud. Her name is Florence, and she's excited because she actually starts the book up. She's the chapter 1 of the book when I'm like holding her as a baby. Nice. And it was interesting because when I started my business, I was, you know, right before I started my business, I had a corporate job, just like many people. And it was interesting because sorry, my headphones are a little bit tight here. But when I started my business, you know, she literally was, you know, I was pregnant with her, and I was responsible for all the Toronto operations. Isn't that crazy? Wow. And I was about 7 months pregnant, and literally, you know, my job was to fly to Toronto, you know, be involved with their operations. And I was flying like every single week. And I was about 7 months pregnant, and I probably wasn't legally allowed to be on the airplane, right? Because you're supposed to be on the airplane after your 3rd trimester. But the thing is, nobody asks you how pregnant you are, right? And if it's your first time being pregnant, you don't really look that pregnant. You know what I mean? Maybe second time, third time, you might be obvious. But they let me on the plane. And so they weren't asking. I had a job to do. I would get on this plane. Well, around my 7th month, right? You know, one of the things that happens when you fly from Houston to Toronto is eventually you're going to get on one of these, what I call propeller jets. These are like these really small airplanes. They have like the 2 seats on one side, the 1 seat on the other side. And I would fight for this, like the ones that have on the one side, right? Because you had a little bit more space. You could sleep and not really get on anybody's nerves, or nobody would like fall on you when they fell asleep. It was, you just want that little one part. And what would happen was I would get on this plane and eventually I couldn't fit in the seat. Like I couldn't fit in the seat. And the reason why was, I wasn't pointy pregnant. I was like wide pregnant, like super, super wide pregnant. Like literally you got to lift the armchair to get the belly in there. And it was a reality for me, because it hit me that, what, your life is about to change. You're here responsible for Toronto. You're about to have this brand new baby girl. And how are you ever going to see her if you're like flying to Toronto every week, right? How are you going to do this? And hence Mariga CPA was born, because I wanted to spend more time with her. I wanted to balance and really see her growing up. But just like a lot of entrepreneurs, right, we start our businesses because we love what we do, right? We're amazing engineers, amazing doctors, amazing carpenters out there, and we love what we do, right? And we love what we do so much. It's our gift. It's the gift that we have been given in this world to do, and we love what we do so much we would actually do it for free. And that's exactly what I did for 3 years of my business. I did it for free, right? I undercut my competition. I was like the cheapest one in town. I took every client that came through the door. And at the end of the day, my husband sat me down one Sunday night and he's like, hey, I think you'll be better off just getting a job. That's like the entrepreneur's work nightmare, a job, right? We'll work 80 hours just not to have a job. Yeah. And it was interesting because he said, at least at your corporate job, you had benefits, you had time off, you had a steady paycheck, you actually had a paycheck, right? And here I was, actually starting to accumulate that, because, when you're doing what you love and you're undercutting your prices and you're wanting to grow, right? And you don't have profit, that means you don't have retained earnings, right? And that means you're financing your business through debt, and that growth through debt. And he was absolutely right. And it was absolutely heartbreaking for me. But what it allowed me to do was really explore, other things. And it helped me explore, one of the things that came into my awareness was the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And I absolutely love that book. It's like my all-time favorite book, Profit First. And I loved it because what Profit First does is, it really takes your traditional way of accounting, right? Revenue minus expenses equals profit. And it says, we're gonna scratch that. We need to work with your innate human behavior, right? We need to work with something called Parkinson's law, right? Thank you, Tara. and Parkinson's law, what it says is, as human beings, we're efficient creatures. The more you give us, the more we're going to use, right? That's just how we are. If you take me to Golden Corral, the buffet, and we all, come on now, let's all admit we've been there once or twice in our lifetime. I'm going to eat a whole lot differently at the Golden Corral than if I go to an order of dinner, right? Where I have a teeny weeny plate and people are watching me. I'm in my really nice business suit. I'm going to eat a whole lot different. But the thing is, when I leave Golden Corral, or if I leave the order of dinner, I'm going to feel satisfied, right? I'm not going to be like, want to stop by McDonald's after any of those places, because I technically already ate. But the difference is I've eaten differently and I've eaten a lot less, just because my plate is smaller and the atmosphere. And so that's exactly what Profit First is we create small plates for our money. So we have collections that come into this income account, but twice a month, what we do is we allocate it to different bank accounts based upon our purpose. So we allocate money to our tax account to save for the tax man. We allocate money to our profit account, because we all need profit, right? That's the whole point of being in business, is we're going to have profit. We allocate to our owner's pay account, because, hey, you are working, you owe it to your family to bring home a paycheck, right? Nobody wants to lose time with mom or dad because they're not making a paycheck. And we also have an operating expense account, right? And that's where everything else goes, is operating expense. And that's where you can decide where you want to have your office space. If you want to be in a fancy downtown area, or if you want to be at home office, you also have utilities, all that has to come out of the operating expense. And that's the only thing that you have left to spend is operating expenses. And what it did for me was it allowed me to reach my financial goals, reach my profitability, really by implementing Profit First in my plan. And, as a CPA, I was able to work with other clients and literally watch them change their legacy. I was literally watching my clients literally become millionaires by implementing the Profit First system. And it's an amazing system. And I am so passionate about it. And that is the reason why I wrote this book. Now, I have a special heart for the minority community, right? Because one, I'm a woman of color, right? And, it's interesting because, I always consider my career kind of the abnormal blessed type of career. I mean, how many people get to work at Arthur Andersen right in their their flagship office at 33 West Monroe, right? And I remember when I started, there were, I think we had like 5 people of color in our like starting class. That was it. In the Chicago office of all the places. And I remember when I started, I'm a Buckeye. I grew up in Ohio, go Bucks, Ohio State University. And when I was moving to Chicago, one of the things I asked my coworkers is like, where do I live? Where do I live in Chicago? And, they're amazing coworkers. They were looking out for me and they would say, you know what, Susanne, you gotta live like Lincoln Park. You gotta live Lakeview. And these areas were super safe. And there's like, whatever you do, don't live South Side, don't live West Side of Chicago. And so naturally, knowing my coworkers had the best interest for me, I naturally moved to Lakeview, Lincoln Park, right off of Diversity and Sheridan. And literally, like, I moved into the high-rise building where everybody looked like Barbie and Ken. They drove a Jetta. When they grew up, they were going to drive a BMW, And I'm like, okay, I'm curious now. What is going on in the south side of town? What is going on here? And so I would literally, my mom would kill me if she hears about this. I would literally get the bus, catch it downtown, switch to another bus. And literally, I would just explore these other parts of the city, right, in Chicago. And what I found was in Chicago, all the buildings are about the same age, right? No matter where part of town, because, cities, they grow up together, right? All parts of the neighborhoods. But there was an economic difference between the south side, west side, and the north side of Chicago. Significant economic. Like literally, you felt like you were going into a whole different town or city just by crossing the border, right? The buildings got older. Sometimes the buildings were boarded up in terms of their windows. There definitely was not a lot of jobs that were there, less grocery stores. You didn't see the Jamba Juices on every corner, right? And while some people go, just like avoid that side of town, my mind goes to like, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? We can't allow communities to have unequal distribution of wealth. How do we fix this? And one of the things that kept coming back to me is you fix this by creating opportunities and neighborhoods that don't have it. Because there's a south side of Chicago in every part of America. I don't care if you're in Ohio, if you're in Alabama, there's a south side of Chicago in every city. And how we fix this is we create job opportunities, and we do that through entrepreneurship, right? Because as an entrepreneur, as a person of color, I'm going to create a job in my neighborhood. I am going to hire my neighbors. I'm going to hire people that live around me, right? And I'm not going to only change my family legacy. I'm going to change my neighbor's legacy, right? Their kids are going to see them grow up as they grow up and go, if mom can be an accountant, I can be an accountant too, right? And so that's why this book became really important to me, because not only are we going to teach minorities profit first, and then we're going to tackle some of the issues that minority businesses face, like government contracting, right? Because, there's a certification for a minority-owned business. You have to be 51% owned by a person of color of an ethnic minority disadvantaged group is what they call it. And of course, there's that pressure to apply for RFPs and our request for proposals, get into government contracting, but not all contracts are good, right? Not all contracts are good. Terry, you're military, you've seen it too, and what happens is, just with the request for proposal process, there's this downward push of price, right? And what happens is you can have this $1 million contract, but run $1 million loss easily. And so we're going to be teaching them the ins and outs of government contracting. When is a good contract? When should you not? What is a strategy for that? Also, we're going to talk about tax strategy. So things that you may not be familiar with as a minority owned business, because a lot of times you're Gen 1 to go to college. I was Gen 1 and my mom's family to go to college. And so we're going to be talking about tax strategy. That's Warren Buffett strategies. So how do you create generational wealth through tax strategy without necessarily increasing your expenses?
Wow, Susanne, you just gave me so many different things to talk about. I love it. Because it just reminds me, like, I'm so glad we're connected, because I really work in my business, teaching people to be open-minded and not be like conventionally thinking. And it's kind of, you touched on it. I call it giving your money jobs. And I love how you have the different places where your money goes to work, and your operating accounts and your different accounts, so that your money starts to work for you. And you're not just always working on the treadmill, running and running and running, trying to make money, but you don't ever seem to have any. So I love that concept. I really love, though, how you talked about going around Chicago and looking at these different areas of town and looking at the different opportunities that exist. And if I'm hearing it right, you've talked about part of being an entrepreneur is that responsibility to lift up those people around you. And what an opportunity that is, that you can work on your business and grow your business And it's a win-win experience, right? It's not like you're going to win and people are going to lose. It's like, hey, I'm going to make this business happen, and then I'm going to be able to hire people in and make things happen. And I have a very similar thought. When I started this business, I was definitely, we were the first people to go to college, and in my family, and I thought, as a financial advisor, if I do nothing else but help my family, and there's 6 of us, that would be worth it. And so I love how you're bringing that. Not just you're not just teaching us about how to do government contracts and how to be successful in the business, but it's a larger thought. Like, it's almost like a mission. I don't know. Would you say that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those life works, and you'll be continually haunted until you do your life's work, right?
And is that what I was looking on your website, and I love you asked the question of, are you being the change that you want to see in the world? Talk about that a little bit. I think you kind of already started, but I love that thought.
Yeah. And, I think that's in every entrepreneur, right? There is a gift that we have, and there's an obligation that we're pulled to, a calling to help people out and to make a change in this world. I mean, that's the reason why we get into hiring employees and scaling, right? Is we have that responsibility to mold others, to lift them up too as we go along. And it's interesting because, when we hire people, we hire people that, may not have been given that opportunity normally, right? Like they're in our communities and they're just, as people of color, we're hiring people of color in our neighborhood, that opportunity didn't exist before. And so literally we're now given the opportunity to mentor somebody else up. One of the things that I see in businesses a lot of times is, there's that loyalty to the community. And sometimes it can work for you, sometimes it can work against you, right?
Right.
Because we've seen the case where somebody like hires somebody and they were their first employee and they've grown and the employee hasn't managed to grow with them, right? And so there's that loyalty to like, come on, man, I'm like trying to pull you up. I need you to pull you up because we're all going this direction. You're still going that direction. We got to get it together on that. But it's that fine balance of, putting the right people in the right places in order to go in that direction too with that. So then balancing that loyalty with making sure that we're able to scale businesses.
I love that. So now for our listeners that want a little more meat, let me ask you a question about business specific things. And I'm going to ask you this question because when I was starting my business, some of the advice I was given was, don't just take anybody with a pulse. Kind of think about the business that you want to have and try to create that. And I've seen you talk about asking the question, do you undercut your value and only try to compete on price? And for those new business owners out there, talk about that a little bit. What does that mean?
I think it's the business trap, right? It's a business trap. And it really starts with when you start a business, a lot of times, and I was guilty of the same thing, is we don't figure out what we want at the end. We're so busy in the churn and the everyday and so getting that next client, get any client, right, that walks through the door, that we never stop and think about at the end of the day, what does winning really look like? What is my exit strategy? How much do I need to make in order to like not be in a corporate job, right? Because sometimes if you could be making $50,000 in a corporate job and you're not even breaking that in your business, maybe entrepreneurship isn't the right thing for you, right? And so it literally starts with, what is my end goal, right? What does winning look like? And then algebraically figuring out, how do we get there at the end of the day? And literally what you're going to find is when you start with that end goal and you go, this is how much I can make, this is how much I can produce. If I want to be a one-man shop, right? And I don't want to have employees, I only have so many hours in a day, right? What does the revenue I need to have in order to get to that outcome, right?
Right.
And also, if I want to scale and I want to be this mega franchise out there, I'm going to have a different strategy, right? I'm going to have multiple locations. I'm going to have hundreds of employees. And again, that's going to require a different strategy too, and maybe a different price point that I can offer my product or service at. And so again, it's starting with what the end goal is and then creating that algebraic plan to get to the end goal and figuring out how many customers do I need to serve? How do I need to price, right, in order to reach the end goal? Because otherwise, if you're just looking at your neighbor and going, hey, Tara, how much are you charging? Or so-and-so, you're going to get the same results that they are, right? It's going to be a race towards the bottom, at the end of the day. And so really you have to look at a customized approach. If I'm going to bring my service to market or my product to market, and I want an artisan, type of product, I want to stand out. I'm about quality versus quantity. what price point do I need to price this at in order to make this worthwhile so that I win at the end of the day?
I love that point, and I'm going to steal that, because in my book, Wealth is a Team Sport, I spend a chapter talking about that with people, that before we can start creating your financial plan to succeed in retirement, what does retirement even look like for you? You know, that little cartoon bubble above your head when you think about retirement, what's in that picture? You know, because it's not the same for everybody. And just like you were talking about, if you're going to be an individual person or expand and scale, same thing with your retirement is you have to know first where you're trying to go. And then you can work backwards and create that plan to get there. So I just love it. Now, you had another thing that I really liked, and I think it's going to be a pretty profound thing to speak about, is you talked about it can be very limiting if you stay inside your circle. And I want you to talk about that, because for most of us, it can be pretty scary to kind of break out of your comfort zone. But what are you talking about when you're saying that?
It is. And I think that, it's a very deep issue, first of all. There's a book that I loved, and it's called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting at the Table in the Cafeteria? And it's about how we tend to migrate to people that look like us, that have the same experience as us. We feel like they understand us. We feel like we understand them, right? And unfortunately, when you stay in that same circle, right, you get the same results because they're limited in their experiences, they're limited in what they can teach you. And so you really don't have that growth opportunity. Now that growth happens when you exit that circle, right? When you start to expand into maybe Terra's circle, you know what I mean? Things start to change, and right. And
It's
you,
a
and you
safe
start
place.
you you get new opportunities. I get to learn what Tara is doing, and I get to learn different things, and I get to experience different things too. So the opportunity, the customers, the growth opportunities happens outside of your circle. Now there's some mindset things that you'll have to overcome too. There's the imposter syndrome that you'll have to overcome, because we are the stories that we tell ourselves. Those stories, a lot of times we've inherited them, right? There's stories from like our mother told us, our grandfather told us. I always tell people, I'm first generation to graduate from college in my mother's family, just like you, Tara. And my grandfather, just one generation, he was a sharecropper in North Carolina. And literally, they were working plantations where people used to be enslaved. And then his mother was just one generation removed from slavery. And so these people had seen the lynchings, they had seen the atrocities, and they will warn their children, hey, you need to be careful. You can't go into certain neighborhoods. You can't associate with certain people, right? People are going to view you a certain way. And these are the stories you inherit, right? These are the stories that you inherit even many generations later on, right? They're past. And so it's going to take that mindset work of, yeah, there are going to be some circles that you're not wanted in potentially, but that's okay. When one door closes, another door opens. Go into the next door. Don't let anything stop you. Keep moving to the next door.
And I don't know if your book gets into that, but I know when I was starting my business, it was surprising to me, like how much money is about emotion and not about math. And in the personal work that I had to do, even in my coach at the time, she asked me, think about how are you keeping yourself small to validate other people's realities? And that was a little mind blowing for me, because it made me really have to think about, like, what little boxes am I putting myself in just because I think that's what's expected. And I think I'm very interested. I don't know if you get into it in your book, but to go through that process, it's like, it's not just about doing the business work, but you have to do that emotional baggage work as well.
Oh yeah, there's a chapter completely into that about networking and going outside of your circles and exploring things such as the National Minority Supplier Development Council, where you're really going to be opening yourself to new doors and new opportunities. And one thing that you're going to be, if you're a person of color, is sometimes you're going to be the only one that looks like you in a room.
Right.
And how to navigate those rooms.
And so I'm really glad that you have that in your book, because those are the nuggets that you're the best one to help, because you've been through it.
Thank you.
Life is hard enough. So if you can have some tips in there for people to latch onto and go, okay, there's at least a way to head. Now, there's so much I want to talk to you about. The next thing I wanted to ask you about, I really found was interesting, is you talk about the differences that you see in your clients who are rising and then your clients who are kind of stuck in a stagnant space. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, when I wrote this book, I wanted it to be kind of like our Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Mhm.
the stagnant versus the rising, right? And and the stagnant, and again, it's talking about that table, right, where everybody looks like you, that room where everybody looks like you, where you're continuing to go after those free government programs, right, and expecting them to teach you. I'll tell you this: you're not going to get the gold in the free programs, all right? You're not going to get that. You're going to get the stuff that everybody gets, right? Which is why only 4% of businesses ever hit seven figures, right? The gold is going outside of that circle. And I talk about the clients that have really succeeded, that have become the Gen 1s, right, in their family. What I mean by Gen 1 is the Gen 1 millionaires, meaning they have pivot their legacies no matter what the color of their skin is, right? And what they did specifically different, and a lot of that was, just like we talked about, it's going outside of your circle, right? Going outside your circle, bringing in those mentors, right? Like Tara, to really teach you, hey, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. Maybe I didn't grow up in a family that talked about investments, but I got this friend named Tara. She can talk to me about investments, right, on a serious level.
Right.
And like, or even like, hiring people. A lot of times what we find in the stagnant company is, they're so, and I get it. I'm profit first. Right? There's a balance in terms of cutting costs, right? And being conservative. But if you always buy the cheapest option, you're going to get the cheapest results a lot of times,
Right.
especially when it comes to people that are good. If you don't pay them market price and what they're worth, they're going to go down the street and get somebody else to hire them. Okay. And we all want the A players. And so really, paying people their worth, treating them the way they need to be treated in order to show that you value them. Right. And these are the things that the people that are rising are doing. They're continuously investing themselves. They're continuously learning. They're investing money as well as time in order to learn. They're bringing on people that are excellent, that are adding value to them, and definitely that's what our book is going to talk about also.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say at this point. So we've talked about a lot of things, but give us a minute just to really talk about your book and like, who is your book really for, and how is it going to help them?
My book specifically talks to the minority business owner. So the minority business enterprise, Gen 1, and it's going to tell you, one of our advanced readers, because, when you're writing a book, you give a copy to a limited amount of readers just to get their feedback on it. Right. And I love my advanced readers. And one of the things that she goes is, I love this book because it talks about things that nobody ever told me about. Right. And literally, I'm unboxing the things that people don't talk about, that the secrets that happens in the rooms where nobody looks like you, right? And how to make it through. And literally, I'm putting those things in the book. Now, I think the book can benefit anybody. I mean, obviously, there's some pretty savvy, snazzy tax strategies, right? That I don't care what color you are, you're not hearing about those unless you're paying an accountant a few $1,000s a month on retainer for. A lot of those favorite tax strategies are going to be in the book. If you're government contracting, right, it's going to be in the book. If you're just shy and introverted, it's going to be in the book, how to navigate rooms. So that's a little bit about the book. Definitely get the book. Right now, it is on pre-order. It hit #1 new release the day that we announced the book was coming out. So this is going to be a big deal. You can get the copy of the physical copy of the book. I'll show it right here. This is the book copy. This is one of the galleys. We only had like 20 galleys printed. So if you got one of these, you're a very special person. But you can get the book at Barnes and Nobles. You can pre-order at the Barnes and Nobles site. We are not offering that on Amazon, so you have to go to Barnes and Nobles. We also have some amazing bonuses if you want to get volume, because it'll allow you to actually have a private conversation with myself and Mike McAllowitz. I think if you buy 3 books, you can buy the Kindle version on Amazon. So Barnes and Nobles for the hard copies, and if you want a Nook version, Barnes and Noble has that. They also have it on Kindle on Amazon. So definitely you can get that at your bookstore now.
I love it. I cannot wait. And I think I'm going to take advantage. You said 3 books and I get to talk with you and Mike.
You do. We're limiting it. So it's one of the bonuses. And once the room gets full, this is going to be a face-to-face conversation on Zoom. Okay. You can ask us about what we thought about with writing the book. We're going to ask him about his next book that he's having, right? And some of the things that we went through. This is your opportunity to get those questions asked.
Now, Mike's good, but I'm really interested in your book because I guess as a woman, I'm just very interested, to see what it's going to be. So, wow, this time has just flown by. So what I'd like to do is just kind of a really quick recap, and then just be thinking about, Susanne, when we're done, I might ask you to share if you have one last bonus concept for the group. But so far, we've just talked about some amazing things. We talked about, how do you deal with the emotional baggage and kind of the personal work you have to do to become a successful business owner. This book has some really good meat about government contracts. And that is huge. If someone can kind of show you the light of how you can think about getting into the government business and getting those government contracts, that book is worth it just for that right there. We talked about, thinking about the mindset, like, are you in a growth phase? Are you bringing people into your world and creating this team? Or are you becoming kind of stagnant and just trying to do everything yourself? And that's a huge point that I talk about in my book too, is wealth as a team sport. Is life is hard. You can't be good at everything. So you have to build these teams of experts around you to help you succeed, because at some point you're going to be limited. One person can only have 24 hours in a day. And so the way you have to maximize to grow and leverage is the expertise of all those people around you. So those were just amazing things. So Susanne, one last thing, if there was one bonus concept that you wanted to share with everybody to take away for today, what would it be?
I'm going to borrow from Simon Sinek because I just absolutely love that man. He's amazing. Start with why. Start with why in your business. Start with why. And then backward algebraically figure it out from there.
That, and I totally agree. I am a huge Sinek fan as well. And if you don't know what your why, how are you possibly going to get there? So I would just say, so excited to have you share with us all this amazing success and this insight in the book. I love the fact that you talked about your feedback you're getting is you're sharing things that people just don't talk about. And that is huge. That vulnerability piece is so important. And when you're trying to create your business. So Susan's book is available at Barnes & Nobles, and you're going to be able to have a lot of great downloads and benefits from the book. If anyone would like to contact you directly, do they just go to your website? How should they contact you?
We actually have a free Profit First Masterclass that's coming up. It's in our private Facebook group. So if you go to Facebook and you search Profit First Masterclass with Susanne Mariga, there's a bunch of other ones, but Susanne Mariga, if you want to get the legit one, Profit First Masterclass with Susanne Mariga, you can sign up now. Our next class is starting May 3rd. So we are enrolling right now for that class. It's free. During that time, I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of Profit First and how to apply that in your business, because I am eradicating entrepreneur poverty.
I love it. So for you guys watching and listening today, don't forget that you can share this interview with your friends who may not have been able to watch it today. It's going to be available. And I am really looking forward to sharing with you a must-know topic next time. I cannot wait to hear about all your success, and especially when you work with Susan and Profit First and what goodness comes from that. I will talk with you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tara.